Providence, 1954. Population just under 250,000 and at its historical peak. The recently merged Children's Friend and Service was 120 years old and was still struggling to find the funds and resources to provide child protective services for the state. The state had not yet taken on this responsibility, and the work of Children's Friend and Service was still largely funded with foundations and private contributions. It was the year Hurricane Carol wreaked havoc in Providence, and the time when Children's Friend and Service finally closed its supposed temporary Doyle Street shelter after providing housing for children for over 70 years.
Children's Friend and Service launched a fundraising drive to build a new facility in Warwick. Called the Lakeside Shelter Home, the facility continued to take in children in protective service for nearly 10 years until the state finally assumed responsibility for child protective service in 1963. Rhode Island was one of the last states to take on the task of protecting children from abuse and neglect. But this left the agency with a need to change course and to find a new use for the Lakeside home. In the 1960s and 70s, Children's Friend and Service chose to concentrate on foster care, adoption services, and counseling help for unwed mothers. The agency turned Lakeside into a home for emotionally disturbed children, but battles for funding and labor strife led to the eventual closing of that facility in 1975 and the end of the line for the agency's residential programs. The 1980s would put the agency on another new course, one that would lead to what it has become today.
Children's Friend had established itself as one of the more prominent United Way agencies and as one of the most successful. It was, however, in 1977, what I might call sleepy. It was certainly doing great professional work, but as services began to evolve in the community and needs of children became even more prominent, there was really a need to take a new look at what the agency was doing.
Around that time, another woman with a social entrepreneurial spirit had started an agency that was targeted to young children at risk. Her name was Lynette Azzi-Lezing.
I started an agency called the Rhode Island Center for Children at Risk and brought together people in the state who understood the importance of starting early with children and families to stop problems from becoming severe, so that these children would really get a best start in life and start school prepared to learn and to succeed. We struggled in terms of getting funding and growing, but we began to attract attention for being very innovative in the approaches that we use.
At that time, the then executive director of Children's Friend, Matt DiCirico, was planning to retire, and the agency was looking for his successor. Knowing the long history of the agency and its excellent reputation in the community, Lynette approached Children's Friend about a merger.
It was a perfect marriage of an organization with a venerable history and an endowment and an opportunity to gain more funding from the private sector and from the state, and an idea and an organization and an enthusiasm which had been lacking at that point.
So Lynette, in her own wonderful way, was reconceptualizing what family services should be in this state. And indeed, as the history of the agency shows, Lynette became the executive director of Children's Friend and Service and took this wonderful approach with her and took this effective but sleepy agency to some wonderful new directions.
One of the goals that I had had for a very long time was to open family support centers in the state that would provide families with essentially one-stop shopping, all the resources that they needed to take good care of their children under one roof.
With funding from the United Way, Children's Friend opened its first family support center in Central Falls in a small rented house. Several years later, with funding from a capital campaign, the agency was able to build a much larger, child-friendly facility. A family support center was also opened in Providence. Today, the agency serves over 17,000 children and families with a wide variety of programs, all designed to help the state's most vulnerable young children.
They deal with the holistic situation of a child and his or her family. And they deal with it from birth right through the time that they enter school. And if you think about it, those are the most formative times in a child's life.
Studies have shown that really you get a much greater return the earlier the age is that you intervene. When they're pretty well formed and in their teens, the odds are not too good at that age.
There are studies coming out all the time right now talking about the benefits of effective early childhood investments. And I'm not just talking about benefits to the child and family, I'm talking about benefits to the community as a whole, to society. There are positive economic paybacks to making these investments in children. And so I think our part is to make sure that we as an agency and as stewards of resources are making those effective investments and really making sure that our programs are high quality and best practice, and also making sure that we're advocating to get the resources to give to these children.
They are focused on results. All along, the impacts and the results are evaluated and assessed so that they can feed that information back into the strategic planning process and continue to grow in the level of service and professionalism that the agency can provide.
In the last 10 or 15 years, it's gotten not only state recognition, but some national recognition for being a real leader in child welfare.
I think that just pushes us to continue to find better ways to do things, to make sure that we are making decisions that are based on research and best practice, and to really raise the bar on our services.
I think what's really nice is the fact that this agency was founded to work with high-risk young children, and 175 years ago, we have still stuck to our mission.
They've always managed to retain a core identity. They have been a part of the fabric of a town for a very long time, and I really respect them for that.
If we stay true to our core values, having the highest quality and dedicated staff possible, that we will be able to make a real difference for the future of Rhode Island's children.
Nothing made Harriet Ware happier than to embrace the least promising child, which is a good motto for all of us to live by.